Yes, it's wonderful.
And you look younger from the last time I saw you.
I ran into
2,000 year old.
somebody. I ran into somebody in the market down in town. They said,
Did your whole family come?
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you need to get slides up or anything?"
No, no, no. I'm good.
Oh, thank you. What's your name?
And I'm Carrie.
Carrie.
You are not children?
No, no, no. You know, we had already gotten a place
I did long ago.
down in
Years ago. It was good, but it was more like
the Marriott Vacation Club,
Jewish accent, but kind of a different
something Pu'u.
Puipu.
No, no, no. It's is it Kalani Pu'u? Something. I don't know. Somewhere. It's down there, not far from the airport. It's not far from the airport. Yeah, yeah, not far from the airport. Hey, thank you. Oh, sorry. Aloha. So tell me where everybody's from. Come on. Come on, hold on. Okay, all right, we'll start over here. Phoenix.
Washington.
Which one?
Spokane, Washington.
Okay, all right.
Northern California. Here's Sacramento.
Okay. Like Northern California, that's the whole top half. It could be just
No,
anywhere.
sorry.
Minnesota.
Okay, Minnesota. Where?
Bloomington.
Okay,
Minneapolis.
okay,
Portland, Oregon.
okay.
Maui. Ontario. Ontario, Canada.
Ontario.
San Diego. Washington State. North of Olympia.
Olympia. North of Olympia. Not Olympia, but north of Olympia. Where?
West. It's a tiny town called Woodsport.
Called where?
Woodsport.
What
Okay.
sport?
Woodsport.
Hoodsport.
Colorado.
Where?
Loveland.
Never heard of it. Where are you from?
Rockford, Minnesota.
Rockford, Minnesota. Cool.
Eden Prairie, Minnesota.
Eden Prairie. Okay. Okay, that's okay. Eden Prairie, that's where the Vikings have their camp. I'll tell you how I knew that earlier. Later. But
San Diego.
San Diego, okay.
Seabeck, Washington. Seabeck, Washington.
Seabeck, Washington, okay.
Chaska, Minnesota.
Who?
Chaska, Minnesota.
Chester, Minnesota, okay.
Warsaw, Indiana.
Warsaw, Indiana, okay, cool.
Long Prairie, Minnesota.
Okay.
North Dakota.
Where?
Minto, small town.
Okay.
Saskatchewan, Canada.
Where?
Where in Saskatchewan?
Yeah. Saskatoon, okay, all right. Saskatoon, I know Saskatoon. You say Saskatoon. Okay, that's a whole, you got a whole country. If I make them say their city, you got it. Lima, okay, all right.
Phoenix, Arizona.
Brighton, Colorado.
Nice, nice.
Elmira, Oregon.
Waldheim, Saskatchewan.
Waldheim, Saskatchewan. That one I did not know, okay?
Woodsport, Washington.
Okay,
Union, Washington. Loveland, Colorado.
okay. Nice, very nice. Well, as was shared with you earlier, my family and I for the last decade have been living and serving in Lusaka, Zambia. Lusaka is the capital city in Zambia. City of a couple of million, so it's a pretty good sized city. Welcome. Where are you from?
Canada. British Columbia. Vancouver Island.
Vancouver Island, British Columbia. Okay. Now Vancouver's the most beautiful city in North
I
America.
know.
Vancouver Island?
I live
Vancouver Island.
family,
Yeah. Yeah.
a family in Vancouver.
Okay. All right. Very cool. All right. Cool. Cool. Thank you. So yeah, um, we went there. We went there a decade ago to help start a university there. I went to Zambia for the first time in 2006. Went to preach at a conference there, an annual conference that they have there. A dear friend of mine told me about this conference and told me about a pastor there that he said I needed to know. A guy by the name of Conrad Mbewe is the pastor there. Paul Washer is the preacher friend of mine here who told me about Conrad, and so I went and preached at their annual conference, and I went with my oldest son. My wife Bridget and I, we have 9 children, and our oldest son, our second born, he went with me. We spent a couple of weeks there, came back. My wife asked me how it was, and I told her, I said, I think I want to be buried there. The only way I could explain it is that I fit. I felt like I fit. Went back almost every year after that. And I didn't know how I would be involved there, but I knew somehow I would. And then around 2012, they started talking about this university. And it resonated with me. The African Christian University is a classical Christian liberal arts university. It's a school that's built on and around the same educational philosophy that established the Ivy League schools here. Back when Harvard and Princeton and Yale were Christian universities designed to, among other things, train pastors. They were classical Christian liberal arts universities. And, there was a time when you had to be proficient in Greek and Hebrew in order to get into Harvard, not to get out, but just to get in, right? Just to study there. You had to be proficient in biblical languages. And so I was excited about that, right? We're homeschoolers, my wife and I, we homeschool, committed to classical Christian education. And so was very, very excited about the opportunity to go and be a part of a school like that. And as things began to materialize, and as things, got closer to launching, my family and I went in 2014 for that same conference. This time we were all there together. And my wife looked at me, August of 2014, while we were there for the conference, and she said, "You need to be here." Just like that. You need to be here. And so we began to sort of talk about that and work through that, went back to our church in Houston, put that before my fellow elders there in our church in Houston. A church that I had planted that church 9 years earlier. And everybody there already knew about my passion and desire for that place and for this particular kind of work. And they agreed that this was where we needed to be. This was the Lord. And so the next year, we're on the ground in Zambia with our 7 youngest children. And like I said, I've spent the last almost decade there. We're now in the process of moving back. We just left there. We've been here. Our first stop was Honolulu. So if I get to looking a little glassy-eyed, it's because of the 12-hour time difference. Jet lag is real. And of the 7 children who were there with us, who are now moving back, 6 of them have spent most of their life there. So this is a very interesting transition for us, moving back in this direction. And so yeah, that's my story. And what I really wanted to talk to you guys about was a couple of things. One is that whole idea of Christian education, which is something that I believe is kind of lost on us. It was really difficult helping people to understand that work, helping people to understand the value of it, because we don't get it. We don't get the value of Christian education. How many of you went to a Christian school? I mean, hold your hand on. Don't be ashamed, right? Hold it up, okay. Yeah, we really don't get the value of it, and then we don't get the value of Christian college education as well. Beyond certain points and beyond certain subjects. For example, there are a lot of people who, again, they're almost a decade. I would come back a few times a year to preach at different conferences in the U.S., and it just never failed. Even just last year, there were people who would say, "Oh yeah, you went to Zambia to start that Bible college," and I would say, "Nope, not a Bible college, not a seminary, a classical Christian liberal arts university." And their eyes would sort of roll back in their head like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." And so they couldn't comprehend why we would start a university over in sub-Saharan Africa. Number one, that was a classical Christian university. All of our students, for example, take Latin their whole first year. They couldn't wrap their heads around that. They couldn't understand why we would offer degrees in agriculture and business and education and things of that nature. They couldn't wrap their heads around that. Like, why? Why do we now want to offer degrees in law and chemistry and biology and like why, right? It's Africa. Just start a Bible college. Just train some pastors, right? Just go get people saved. And we say that for a couple of reasons. One, because we're short-sighted in terms of how we think about the future. But secondly, we're also short-sighted in terms of how we think about the past. We don't recognize the fact that we exist within the context of a culture that is the envy of the world, not because we started Bible colleges here, but because we started classical, Christian, liberal arts universities that taught everyone from a biblical worldview. What built this culture, what built the West, what built Western civilization was not people who said, we're going to do Bible colleges and then we're going to do universities over here for people who don't go to Bible college. The Bible college is going to be built on the Bible. The universities over here, they're going to be built on something else. That's a foreign concept. It's a completely foreign concept. It is a new idea. In fact, the whole concept of the university is rooted and grounded in biblical theological education. The earliest universities in the world, all of them, rooted and grounded and biblical theological education. All of the earliest universities in America, right? All of them, rooted and grounded in biblical theological education. Not just for preachers, but for everyone who received higher education. And so what we have now is a situation where even in our Christian universities, you know, 90% of our Christian universities, you go there and in your Bible department, you will have people who believe the Bible. But in your psychology department, you have people who don't believe the Bible. Amen? In your science departments, you have people who don't believe. I'm talking about your Christian universities, right? Forget your secular universities. You know, that's a whole other discussion, right? But I'm talking about now, even in Christian universities, we don't see the value of biblical theological thinking, biblical worldview for all of life. And we think it's something that just belongs in our Bible training. And nothing could be further from the truth. And so that's what excited me about this opportunity. Also, I was excited about the fact that it was happening in Zambia. Zambia is a unique country. It's about the size of Texas with about 16 million people. Texas is probably 30-some million. I don't know, with all the Californians moving in there over the last several years. There's no telling how many people are in Texas now. But you know, Texas is north of 30 million people. So Zambia is the size of Texas with half of the population of Texas. And I can talk about Texas because I'm a Texan. I'm the worst kind of Texan. I'm a Texan by choice. I'm a Californian by birth, but a Texan by the grace of God, right? And so here's this small country in South Central Africa. Zambia sits right there in South Central Africa. It's above Zimbabwe. So you have South Africa, and then you have Zimbabwe, and then you have Zambia. You have to the south of Zambia, you have Zimbabwe, you have Namibia, you have Botswana, and then over on the east side, you have Malawi, Mozambique. Northeast, you have Tanzania. Above it, you have the Democratic Republic of the Congo, right? The DRC, where all kind of trouble's been going on. And then on the west side, you have Angola. So Zambia is completely landlocked, and it's in the middle of a bunch of countries that are in huge turmoil. But it's the most stable country on the continent. It's the most peaceful country on the continent. 55 countries on the continent of Africa. Zambia's currency is stable. Zambia's political climate is stable. Zambia's never had a civil war. Zambia was a British colony until 1964. So they've been independent for 60 years. Because of that, English is the national language in Zambia. There are 72 tribes and different tribal languages in Zambia, but English is the national language there. So when you think about all of those things combined, it's a very strategic place on the continent. Also, there is a vibrant indigenous Reformed Baptist movement that has been thriving in Zambia for over 35 years. That was another thing that really attracted me to that work there, because I didn't go there as an American to superimpose an American ministry on the people of Zambia, right? I went there to work alongside and under the authority of local Zambian Christians who were starting this work so that it wouldn't be an alien work. And again, that was something that was incredibly attractive to me from a missiological standpoint. The other thing is, when you think about it, talked about Western civilization earlier. Western civilization is crumbling. Christianity is dying all across Western civilization, all across Europe. Um, Christianity's dying all across Europe. There are Christians in Europe, but they are a shadow um, of what they used to be. Um, all European countries are hostile toward Christianity. Um, Islam is growing rapidly throughout Europe, um, through not only migration, but also through birth rates. Um, all of Europe is below replacement rate. By the way, does that, you understand what that term means when I say replacement rate? So replacement rate, 2.1 children per woman. 2.1 children per woman on average, right? That if your birth rate is 2.1 children per woman, then you're replacing yourself, right? Is that okay? How do you get 0.1 children? Don't ask. But anyway, so that's replacement rate. All of Europe is below 2.0. In fact, there is a point of no return, demographically speaking, and that point of no return is 1.4 children per woman. 1.4. Once a culture goes below 1.4, they will cease to exist as a culture. And almost all of Europe is below the point of no return. Almost all of Europe, okay? Developed countries in Asia have the lowest birth rates. The lowest birth rate in the world. Anybody want to take a guess at what country has the lowest birth rate in the world? No. No. 0.7. 0.7 is the lowest birth rate in the world, but what country? Nope. Nope. Russia's really low, but nope. Vietnam, nope. South Korea. Yeah, South Korea. South Korea has the lowest birth rate in the world. They are 1/3 of replacement rate. They would have to triple their birth rate in order to get to replacement rate. Okay? They would have to double their birth rate to get to the point of no return.
So like, does that mean like within like our lifetime we'll kind of see them like dwindle or be diminished, or what does that mean?
Yeah, they're dwindling now. So right now in South Korea, if you look at 4-year-olds and 50-year-olds, okay, there's 4 times more 50-year-olds than there are 4-year-olds. Let me say that again. In South Korea today, there are 4 times more 50-year-olds than there are 4-year-olds, which means 50 years from now, 45 years from now, South Korea will have 1/4 the number of people that they do today. 1/4, except for my, yes.
So is that because like cultural values have shifted, or has something else changed that's caused birth rate to lower?
Okay. This wasn't what we were talking about today, but it needs to be. So, is that because cultural values have shifted, or is it because of something else? It's because cultural values have shifted. There are a number of things that usually cause declining birth rates. Anybody want to take a guess at what those things usually are? War. War causes declining birth rates. Okay? Hold on. War, famine, um, Don't pay attention to it. Okay, economic catastrophe. Okay, depression, things like that. Right. These are the things that normally cause declining birth rates. None of those things have caused South Korea's declining birth rate. By the way, America is below replacement rate as well. Okay? America is below replacement rate as well. Significantly below replacement rate. All right? Which is weird. Nobody notices it right now. Most people don't notice it right now. There are some people who notice it right now. Economists notice it right now. But most people don't notice it right now because South Korea's population, largest it's ever been. America's population, largest it's ever been, right? So you would know. Some countries you don't notice it because of immigration. America, because of immigration, right? You don't notice it as much. But you will begin to notice it. Places, for example, like Russia. Russia is already seeing a decline in their population, a significant decline in their population. China is already seeing a significant decline in their population. Okay? Most populous country in the world. Everybody looked at China, and their thinking would have been that China points to the fact that we're overpopulated, right? There's too many people in the world. You got all these people in China. Well, China's population is already starting to decline, and the decline will get faster and faster and faster as it goes, right? So it was none of these things. So what was it? And tell me your name here in the front. You're raising your hand. Tanner? Tanner, you're trying to say it. Say it. It was your moment. It was your moment, man. It was like, here. Yes. So, education. Education, okay? Education. It was great. We see educational opportunities for women like never before in history. That's great, right? Absolutely. That's wonderful that we see educational opportunities like never before for women. However, when we began to prioritize education, what do we begin to put off? Family and childbearing. So we begin to delay. First thing we begin to do is delay childbearing. Okay? So that's the first thing we begin to do. Is put it off until later. What's wrong with that? Fertility. Explain. Tell me your name.
Kelson.
Kelson?
Yeah.
Okay. Not men. Men are fertile their whole lives.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
There's a kind of a cap on how old women can have children at.
Yes.
And also the closer you get to that cap, it's either the harder it is and the
Yes.
more unlikely it is to produce as many offspring, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. There's a cap. There's a thing called menopause, right? Women get to a place where they cannot have children anymore. All right, and so that's usually in the later 40s, early 50s. There's been some women who've gotten pregnant in their early 50s, but for the most part, no. For the most part, in the late 40s, you're done. But even before the late 40s, fertility drops dramatically for women. In fact, there's a term. The term is geriatric pregnancy. You know what the word geriatric means? Yeah, right? How old is a woman when she's considered to have a geriatric pregnancy? 35. 35. 35 years old is a geriatric pregnancy because fertility is in rapid decline, right? It's in rapid decline by the time a woman is in her mid-30s. Now, watch this. Average age at which women are getting married today in the West is what? In the U.S., it's around 28, right? In the U.S., it's around 28. So, 28. So let's say 28. Sorry, this bored me. So from 28 to 35, that gives you how many years? 7 years. Now, 7 years. You can have a lot of babies in 7 years. Not too many, but you can have a lot of babies in 7 years. But most of these people are what I call yachts. Yachts. Not like the boat yacht, but what yachts, Y-O-T, right? When they get married, they want to wait a year or two before they start having kids. So now that 7 years becomes 5. So you got 5 years before you're looking at geriatric pregnancy. 5 years. And contrary to popular belief, biology doesn't work like this. I don't want to be pregnant, I don't want to be pregnant, I don't want to be pregnant, I don't want to be pregnant. Okay, fine. Let's go. Biology doesn't work like that. Okay? Biology doesn't work like that. And so here's a conversation or interaction that I've had many times, counseling with people. You know, as a pastor, you counsel with people all the time. You counsel with people who are deciding that they're going to get married, and then, you know, they get married, and they're like, you know, we're gonna wait a year or two. We're gonna wait. I'm like, why are you waiting a year or two? You know, well, you know, we just want to get to know each other. That's what your courtship was for. Well, you know, we just want to, you know, besides that, if you really want to get to know somebody, have a baby with them. Hey, amen, right? Yeah, if you really want to get to know somebody, okay? You think you know somebody until there's a baby crying at 2 o'clock in the morning and you're looking like, you know, you going or I'm going, okay. And so, well, we're not ready to have kids. You're not ready to have kids, you're not ready to get married. Married folks have kids. If you're not ready to have kids, why are you doing this? Okay? But they go ahead and they get married. And then they say we're going to wait a year or two. And then they come back later after that year or two, and now they're distraught. Why are they distraught? Because they can't get pregnant. Because they can't get pregnant. Because in their mind, it was going to be, nope, 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 nope. Okay, fine. Boom, we're pregnant. And now it's another year later, and they can't get pregnant. By the way, during this last election, there was a lot of talk, not just about abortion, but about another topic. What? IVF. Since when is IVF an issue in national elections? Well, IVF has become a huge issue. Why? Because we're putting young ladies on birth control at 15, 16 so that they can go and be sexually promiscuous and not get pregnant. And then we're having them to wait until they're 28. So, you know, that's how many years? 13 years, right? 13 years of chemicals in your body dealing with your fertility. And then if you wait another 2, that's 15 years. And then all of a sudden, we want to stop using that and expect our bodies to just kick into gear and do their thing. And for a lot of people, they're finding out that's just not the case. And so now they're having to go and get medical help to help their bodies do what they tried to force them not to do for a decade and a half, right? All right. So there's one thing. There's other things, though. Not just education, but materialism. Materialism. We can't afford kids. We can't afford kids. Why can't we afford kids? Why can't we afford kids? Hmm? Selfishness? What was it? Was it not expensive to have kids before? It was expensive to have kids before. Yeah, it was expensive to have kids before, you know? And so we look at people like Susanna Wesley. You know how many kids Susanna Wesley had? Yeah, 13, 14 kids. And we're like, yeah. If she lived today, she would be mocked by Christians, not just by non-Christians. How do I know? Because I've walked into church with 9 kids. And people look in horror and dismay. Right? Like, what's wrong with you people? Okay? But Susanna Wesley, do you think it was not expensive? Do you think that when they had 14 kids, do you think it was easy to feed 14 kids then as opposed to being hard to feed 14 kids now? No. It was hard. It was hard. And they lived in what we would consider abject poverty. But it was never even a consideration that they wouldn't have those kids. Now we set standards for ourselves for the kind of houses that we need to live in, the kind of cars that we need to drive, the kind of lifestyle that we need to lead. And once we've done those calculations, children now become an inconvenience and a burden, not a blessing. There's another one that's driving it. Pessimism. Pessimism. The world's a terrible place, right? Besides that, climate change. We're not even going to have an Earth. Why I want to bring babies around here? We're not even going to have an Earth. Why am I going to welcome a baby into the world and say, hey, baby, welcome for the few years that you're going to have, because there's not going to be an Earth. Okay? Like, there's this pessimism. Okay? There's this pessimism. So, in Russia, one of the things that they tried to do, they recognized early on. By the way, there's a piece that came out about this, I think yesterday. There's a piece that came out about this yesterday. And I sent it to a friend of mine because in the second book I ever published in 2004, it's called Family Driven Faith, and I address this issue there, right? 20 years ago, things were not nearly as bad 20 years ago as they are today. And back then, 20 years ago, I talked about how Russia was trying to address this. They gave tax credits. They gave baby bonuses, right? People would get like thousands of dollars. You have a baby, you get thousands of dollars. Tax credits, baby bonuses, other types of incentives And it did absolutely nothing to change the birth rate. Nothing. Because there's another factor. Sorry, the lower it gets, the harder it gets to write. Religion. Religion. People of faith have more children. People of faith have more children. Okay? There is one country that is considered a modern, Westernish country. Western in terms of how advanced they are, and so on and so forth, that has the highest birth rates in the world. It's Israel. It's Israel. They're at 3.5 or more. Okay? Well above replacement rate. But why? Religious convictions. The Islamic world. The Islamic world is full of countries that are above replacement rate. Why? Their religion. Their religion. But by the way, there is one country that is extremely religious, but below replacement rate. In fact, at or below point of no return. Anybody? No, Italy's. I mean, in India's. I just gave it away. India is. India's up there. Yeah, Italy. Italy's extremely religious, but they're Roman Catholic and nobody means it. It's just outward observance, right? It's just outward observance. And one of the ways that you see that it's just outward observance is because of their birth rates, right? It's because of their birth rates. So, yes, sir.
So is this all across the globe, like in 50 years, we can see a massive, I guess, drop in population, like, or is...
Yes, we're going to see in the next 50 years a massive drop in population. Yeah.
Like
Worldwide,
worldwide?
yeah. Because most of the countries in the world are below replacement rate. Most of the overwhelming majority of the countries in the world are below replacement rate.
Even all the countries in, like, I feel like Africa is kind of not as, like, big.
No, African countries are above replacement rate.
They above?
Yeah.
Because they're all developing, right?
Yeah, and most of the developing world, most of the developing world is above replacement rate. Yeah, except for places where there's war, famine, economic catastrophe, places like that, you'll see lower birth rates. But developing world where things are normalized, you see higher birth rates.
So, where does culture fit into this chart? Is culture like the number 8, or would you say culture describes everything here?
This is culture.
Okay.
This is culture.
That means that our culture and our society is super, super important, and what we allow to influence our culture is also massively important because of that.
Yep.
Do you have any more thoughts? Can you elaborate more?
When we come back.
Okay, sounds good. Great.
Supposed to break, right? Okay. Vodie.
Vodie?
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. I'm Isaac.
Pleasure. Pleasure.